Creating a shopfront in Illustrator. This tutorial will go through step by step how to create this shopfront in Illustrator. During the tutorial we will go through inserting images into an Illustrator file, creating PNG files, which are Photoshop files that retain the transparency background, live trace, installing and downloading a font into Illustrator, the pen tool, the shape tool, the line tool, creating patterns, aligning objects and grouping objects. Before the tutorial I downloaded the following images to aid the tutorial: an olive tree, a shop sign, a brick swatch and a pavement. To begin, open up Illustrator, the AI icon at the bottom of your page, and open a new document. Go to File, New. You can create it as A4 and ideally you want it landscape, so click Landscape and a new page should open. To get into a good habit, the first thing I'm going to do is save my file. So I just go to File, Save As, and I'm going to call it Boutique Shopfront. And save it somewhere where you're going to remember it. And to begin with, I'm just going to go and find an image that I've found earlier, my pavement. And all I did was Google a pavement image and crop it out in Photoshop. Remember, whenever you get the blue cross, select Embed. Holding down Shift, I'm just going to make it smaller so that it doesn't distort, and just place this at the bottom. So I've got the beginning of my shop front just with the pavement. The next thing I'm going to do is bring in the brick wall. So again, this is saved from earlier. It's just an image that I've downloaded from Google Images. Again, just embed it when it's got the blue cross. And also I just want to reduce it in size so that it appears as I want the brick wall to be scaled. So at this point I make sure I've got my swatches open. I'm just going to drag and drop the bricks into my swatches, and as I do that you should see very small, but my little brick wall is just there. I can now delete this on my page. And using the shape tool, I'm going to draw a rectangle just to fill the top half. And now I want the outline to be empty, so I've got my red line through it already. And I want the fill to be my brick wall. So I'm just going to go and select it in my swatches. And there you go, I've got a brick wall. So now I've got my background sorted, I'm going to group it together so that the pavement and the brick wall stays together. So I'm just going to use my selection tool, select the brick wall fill that I've created and also the pavement, and then go to Object and Group. This just means that those two pieces will stay together now. The next thing I'm going to do is create the white area of the background of the shop, so this area here. To do that I want to make a white rectangle on top of the background that I've created. So make sure that nothing's selected, so just selecting off the brick wall and pavement just to make sure. I'm going to create a white square, so I want the fill to be white, so I'm going to select white there, and I want the outline to be black. So I put black here, and now I'm just going to draw a rectangle on top where I want the shop front to be placed. Just like that. The next thing I want to do is create the shop banner that goes along the top. So this time again I'm going to make sure nothing's selected by clicking off the side like that, and then getting the straight line tool, which is this tool here. This time I want to make sure that there's no fill, I just want a black straight line, so the box here should look like this. Then I'm going to start where I want the line to begin, holding down Shift and take it across to the other side. And there I have the beginning of my shop banner at the top. Earlier on I went and searched for a font that I could use for the shop title Blossom Mother and Child. I went to www.dafont.com to find a font that would be appropriate. I found this font called Newton and went and downloaded it. The font should download either to your desktop or to your downloads file. Mine's here in my downloads file. If you go into the folder you'll see that it will have a number of different fonts in there, all ending in .ttf. If you double click on one of these, a window like this should appear. Just click Install Font and then your font will be available for you to use in Illustrator. If a box like this comes up, just check the box and click Install Checked. We can now write the title of the store. Make sure nothing's selected again by just clicking off the side of your shop and get the text icon, and you can just click on the screen and write the title of your store. Select the font, and then if you go up here you can search for the font that you've downloaded. There's mine. And also I'm going to change mine to be uppercase. You can do this quite simply by going to Type, Change Case, Uppercase. We now want to create outlines for the text, so we just select off the text and then back on it, and then go to Type, Create Outlines, and now we can put the title of the shop where we want it to be. I've also created a second piece of text in the same way, saying mother and child. I want to now fill this text, so I select both of the bits of text, holding Shift to get them both. I'm also going to group them because I want them to always stay together, so I'm going to Object and Group. And I'm making sure that there's no outline. I just want to change the fill colour. At the moment it's black, and I want to change it to this pink colour here. So there we go, change the colour. I now want to make sure that everything's centralised that I've created so far, including the text, the back of the shop front, and also the far background. So I'm going to select everything that I've done. Bear in mind I've got the back grouped together and the title grouped together. Now I'm going to go to Windows and select the Align window, and this window pops up, and I want to align everything to the centre. So everything's aligned, and obviously you can see the title, it's kept the bottom piece to the right, and just to make everything back on the page, just shuffle that along there. So now that I know everything's very central. The next thing I want to do is create this door here, so I'm going to do that as a grouped object too. So first I want to use my shape tool again, so I'm selecting the rectangle, and I want to make sure that my fill is white, and I want to have an outline that's black, and I'm going to create a rectangle that's going to be the outer part of the door and place it just here. I'm now going to copy and paste this rectangle for the back of the door. So I'm going to press Command C to copy. And I want to paste straight on top, so I'm going to press Command F. So I've now got two of those straight on top of each other. Then I'm just going to decrease the size from the top to give it a 3D look, and just bring in each side. And again I'm going to select them both and just make sure that they're centralised to each other. To help with the 3D effect, I'm going to create some little lines that go from the corner to this corner. I'm going to do this using the pen tool. I just want it to be a plain black line, so I'm just going to make sure that this has got the red line going through it to make sure it's invisible. And I'm just going to use the pen tool, zoom in and draw a line from this corner to this corner. And that's it. So then I'm just going to press my selection tool to stop that, click off, and then do the same from the other corner to this corner. That just gives it a slight 3D effect. I'm also just going to make this back rectangle grey as well. Because I've drawn a few different elements to this door, I'm just going to make sure I'm going to group what I've started already. So I'm just going to select the two little lines that we've just drawn, the black grey piece of the door and the front white piece, and group those, just so I don't start to lose bits, and you can see it just keeps it moving around together. I'm now going to draw another rectangle. Again, I want the black outline and the white fill. Another way I can select this quickly is if I get the eyedropper tool, which is this one here, and click on the part of the door which I want to copy, do the same thing. It selects exactly the same. As you can see, it's changed to the grey fill there and the white fill there, so it just takes exactly the same colour fill and outline by using the eyedropper tool. So I'm going to create a rectangle inside the door, which is going to look like my window. And again, if I select that along with the back of the door, which is now all one piece, I'm just going to centralise that, and again go to Object and Group. Then I'm also going to create another rectangle down at the bottom here, and this one I want to make look slightly 3D as well, it's like a step. So I'm just going to zoom in If I go and select the direct selection tool, which is this one, the white arrow icon, select off it and select on that, and you can see the little white dots that come up in the corner are anchor points. If I select on one of these, I can move it in slightly. If I hold shift, it keeps it aligned, and again at the other end, and it just gives a slight 3D effect. I'm just going to align that to the very bottom of the door by just pulling it down. And again now, selecting the rest of the door, I'm going to object and group that. There's also a small letterbox in the door that I want to create, so again I'm just creating another triangle. This one I want to be a slightly darker grey. And just so it looks like a letterbox, I'm going to draw, using the line tool, a line across the middle, which I just want to be a black line. And again I'm just going to make sure that lies directly in the middle of the letterbox by selecting this align tool. I'm going to group the letterbox together so I don't lose any part of it. And I'm now going to go and select the letterbox along with the door and the central align tool to make sure that's all aligned, and then again object and group. So I've just created some more text here just to give some opening times. I've just done a series of text boxes, so you should be able to do that now from the information I've given you for the title. And again, I've just aligned it and grouped it with the whole of the door to keep everything together. I also just want to create a welcome sign, which is just arched up here. So I'm going to get my text tool. I want my text to be dark grey, which I've selected, and obviously I don't want any outline to my text. I'm just going to click and write the word welcome. It's still in the font that I downloaded called Newton earlier, and my font's just changed colour, so I'm just going to go use the eyedropper tool and make sure that it's the same colour as the other text I've created. So I'm just making sure that I click right on top to select the same grey. So now I'm going to go to type and create outlines and drag my text over to the door, maybe just make it slightly bigger. And then I'm going to go to effect at the very top, warp, and then arc. And then you can see that this window will come up. So you want to select preview, and as you can see the text in the background has already started to pop up. I'm kind of happy with probably about that much of an arc. If I went down, it would make the arc go downwards. So if we go up to about there and press OK, and then what we do is go to object and expand so it doesn't change. And now I'll select that along with all the background, align again, and go to object and group. I'm now just going to create a little open sign. So I'm just going to draw another rectangle. I want it to be exactly the same fill and outline as this one, so I'm just going to use the eyedropper tool to select this rectangle. And I'm just going to write the word open. I'm going to create outlines, selecting the same colour that we've used for the other bits of text. I'm just going to place it over this rectangle, select them both, and I want it to align to centre both ways, and then I'm going to go to object and group that. Then I'm just going to draw a mock piece of string, so using the pen tool, making sure there's no fill, just an outline of black. I'm just going to create a piece of what will look like a piece of string, hopefully. Again, just selecting all of that and going to object and group so that it's all just one shape now as I move it around. Then I'm going to place it in the middle, again align to centre, and just to make it a little bit more authentic, I'm just going to tip it to the side just very slightly, and then select that along with the whole of the back and go to object and group. To end the door, I'm just going to create a quick door handle. I've just added the number 21, but I'm just going to draw underneath it. I'm going to create 2 circles. Don't want to have any outline, just a fill. And I want 2 circles to be exactly the same, so I'm just going to copy and paste them. And that will be the top and the bottom of the door handle. I'm just going to make sure that they're completely centred. They look centred anyway, but just to check, go to object and group those 2 together. Then I just want to create another rectangle which will sort of be drawn over them to sort of look like a door handle. And I'll just centralise all of those and go to object and group. I'm just going to place that then on my door. Just shrink it down in size a little bit so it fits on neatly. Just make sure that it's in the centre there, that piece. And then I'm just going to create a rounded edge rectangle just to go underneath it to sort of look like a mock lock. And I'll just select all 3 of those bits and just align them so they are neat, and just object and group those, and then also group them to the actual door. Object and group, object and group. And that's my door finished, and as you can see, as it's been grouped, it moves around all together. To finish my door off, I just want to create a line down here to kind of give it a border. I want to make sure it's just a black line with no fill, which is automatically done anyway. And just like some doors have, and they have the piece of stone at the front, I'm just going to create 2 separate round rectangles. So one that's going to go here, and again I want that to be black with a white infill, so just like this background. And I'm just going to copy and paste that and put one on the other side too, just to kind of give my door a bit of a frame. So again, I'm just going to group those 2 bits, align them with the door, and then group all that, and then I'll group with that as well. So that's my door finished. I'm now going to create this window here. So now to create my window, I'm going to do a series of 3 rectangles. The first one will be the outside of the window. I want it to be a white rectangle with a black outline. I want my window to be about that kind of size, just fitting nicely in that remaining gap. To make sure if it is something different, I can just use the eyedropper tool again to select one of the previous rectangles that I've drawn. And I'm going to copy and paste this rectangle by doing Command C and Command V, and I just want it to fit nicely and neatly inside the rectangle I've just drawn. So just by eye, just sort of pulling down each corner until it sort of fits within there. And this one I want to be grey, is similar to the door frame, so I'm just going to use my eyedropper tool there, and I'm going to select the back rectangle as well and just align both centrally and vertically. And then I'm going to get this inside one and copy and paste as well. Again, Command V as a shortcut, and again just sort of bringing in the corner. And this time I'm going to make it just fit a little bit easier in with a little bit more space. Use the eyedropper tool to select the same fill and outline as the back rectangle. Then select all 3 again and align both ways, and then go to Object and Group. And that's the outside of my window created. Using the trace tool, I earlier created 2 mannequins and copied and pasted them into the window. Again, I'm grouping those with the window. And now I just want to do a sail sticker to put on the window, and I want it to be a circle. So getting my circle tool, I want it to be pink, the same colour as the text up there. And then here's some text that I created earlier, the same way that I've created previous text, which I'm just going to pop onto the sticker. And again, just aligning it and then grouping it. So that's on the window there. I've also added some little shine details onto my window so it looks like an actual window, so you can see the parts of the shop that you'd actually be able to see through. And all I've created is, again, using my shape tool and creating a rectangle. I want the fill to be a grey colour, because that will work best. And I'm just going to, on top of my window, create the grey box. I just want it to be a grey fill with no outline. Then I'm going to find my transparency window. If yours isn't open, you can go and find it by going to Window and then selecting Transparency from the drop-down menu. And I'm just going to drop the transparency down to almost, say, about 13%. Now if I zoom in a little bit, and I want to click off everything so nothing's selected, and then go and get my direct selection tool, which is the white mouse arrow. And I just want to grab the very end of that rectangle. And if I then just grab the end, so I've got white anchor points, holding down Shift, I'm just going to pull it up to the top. And hopefully that kind of gives a slight transparent feel. But I can select that, I'll copy and paste it, And then I can do another one. I'm just going to reduce the size of that to make it just look a little bit smaller. And then again I'm going to copy and paste another one and just pull it over to this side so that we've just got a slight shine effect to the window. I've also added the same effect here to my door. I've also, now looking at it, decided to make my title of the shop just a little bit bigger to give it a bit more impact. And I'm now going to group all the shop that I've done so far together, excluding the background. So I've selected everything, and then I'm just going to click on the background so that's not selected and group it. The next thing I'm going to do is create this sign here using the Live Trace tool. So I brought this image in, which I downloaded from Google Images. I just searched for shop sign vectors. That means you get a series of black and white images. So I'm going to live trace this to make it into a vector, so a shape similar to what we've traced around before for the mannequins, and etc. When I brought the image in, like always, it will have the blue cross, so you just click embed. And then while it's selected, you should see along the top menu the word live trace comes up. Just beside it there should be a little arrow pointing down. If you go to tracing options, and then you want to select ignore white. As this is a black and white image, it will trace both the black and the white into a vector image, and obviously we don't want the white. So you just click trace, and as I do that, you can see it's sort of traced it. It's really important to say that the images need to be really high resolution. The higher resolution, the better the trace that you'll achieve. You don't want it to be all jaggedy edged and so on. So once you've done that, you'll see along the top while it's still selected that there's an expand button. If you click that, you'll see that it's now become all individual shapes. So if I just zoom in, it means that I could go and edit various bits. The first thing I want to do is get rid of the little bit of text that was copied at the bottom. So I'm just using the group selection tool, which is the arrow with the plus, which means I can go within a group and just select something individual and delete it. I'm also using the group selection tool, going to select the middle of the sign, and I want to make that white. So obviously you can't see it there, but I've got the centre part as white. And I also want to take the title, which again, if I just go in and use the group selection tool and double click and click again, until I get that piece that was originally grouped together, I'm going to copy and paste it and also put it onto the sign so that it has a name. And then I'm just going to group all back together, so go to Object and Group. Now I'm going to move it over to the side, make it smaller. And actually I'm going to move the whole of my shop just to the left so that I can fit it in a bit more neatly on the side because there's not much space. Make it a bit smaller again. Then without holding shift, I'm just going to bring it in slightly, just so that it looks a little bit more 3D. So I'm now going to grab this tool over here, which is the scale tool. When I click on that, I can also just play around, and you can see as I move things around, it just changes the shape, and I'm just pulling it in a bit so it just, again, just looks a little bit more 3D. As you can see, it's placed there at the side, and hopefully it just looks slightly more 3D. And finally, I'd also searched for the olive tree, which I showed you earlier in Google Images. I took it into Photoshop and deleted all the background, and I'm now just going to take it into Illustrator. And when I finished deleting the background in Photoshop, I saved it as a PNG file, which keeps the transparency, so you can see I've got the transparent background there rather than a white square. Again, I'm just going to click embed and shrink the size of it down. And I'm going to copy and paste it and put another one at the other end of the shop. And then you see I've completed and done a basic shop front that illustrates a design.